And happy Wednesday to the world out there. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Fantastic.
Amazing.
That's a little bit too peppy for a 2-5 team that we're talking about tonight. But
well, hey, I mean, there could be no football at all, and then
that is true.
So you gotta look at it from that perspective.
That is true. But yeah, we got some football to talk about. We have the Seahawks to talk about. We have Geno Smith to talk about. We have Russ. We have Pete. We got the defense. We got all the things to talk about. But luckily we're not on primetime anymore. I think that will be a little bit better. I definitely was I don't know if I would say anxious because I wasn't nervous about the game. I definitely wasn't confident about it. But I did not like waiting until Monday night to play that game.
And three primetime losses in a row does not feel very good.
Yeah, literally, that's the most un-Pete thing. We can't say un-Russ thing because Russ isn't there right now, but it was by far the most un-Pete thing we've ever seen for sure.
Yeah, pretty un-sea hockey, really.
And it's weird because they weren't like blowouts. Like they were all close games, and even this game felt like the Seahawks could have won. But just wasn't in the cards. And I'm not sure if the losses are going to feel better because I felt like the last two games the losses were very similar. We had the ball, we had chances, and we just could not do anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny. It's like, when Russell was in there and we weren't playing as well as we should be and we're losing games, it's kind of hard to identify the reasons why. But watching these games, it's pretty obvious what isn't going right in these particular games to me. That just a player two here or there, and maybe we win them. And it's just, you can see that based on certain personnel, it's just not going to happen.
And I think the thing that makes it even more, I don't know if frustrating is a word, because I wasn't mad after the loss, but it feels like they're so close. Like, it wasn't even like a bounce here or there. It's just like they just need to do like one thing different, and it's potentially a different game.
Yeah.
And what's also,
there's a lot of that the whole season. To be honest, I'm not a blame the kicker person because I'm not blaming it all on the kicker, but we literally are like 3 swings of a leg from being 4-3, and that sounds very different. We never go to overtime in that other game if we hit the extra point. So Monday night, if we kick and make 2 field goals that were missed, and they were makeable. I'm not blaming it. It's almost like in soccer. Like, you can blame it on the goalie, but if it came down to the goalie, that means a bunch of other people messed up.
right.
If you're depending on the kicker, you didn't get the touchdowns. Your defense gave it. So I'm not blaming the kicker. I'm just saying, if those swings of the leg though go better, we're 4-3, not 2-5, and all of a sudden, where the whole conversation sounds different.
You don't want to go Jim Mora on Olindo Mare right now? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I don't like the revisionist history all the time. At the time when Jim Mora went off on the kicker, I was on that website we used at the time. I was really, really mad, and I said that's really, really horrible coaching. But in the immediate aftermath, people have changed how they reacted to it. Everybody else was like, well, yeah, that's true. Da-da-da. I'm like, that's not the conversation that you have in public. That's not how you talk to reporters. That's not how I was so glad to have the anti-Mora after that. Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to need a guy next week, why are you belittling him now? Like,
we're going to talk about that and I'm glad you brought that up, because Jim Mora to Pete Carroll, they are such a difference of coaching styles. And we'll talk more about it later, but Jim Mora was just like, he was a guy that wanted to exude toughness, even if he didn't necessarily have the stance to be the toughest guy in the room. Because if you look at his accomplishments, yeah, he had a 2-year swing where he did well in Atlanta, but he lost. His record got worse and worse every year. When he was the Seahawks secondary coach, and then was he our defensive coordinator?
No, he was our assistant head coach.
But the defense got worse with him every year. And again, it's not entirely his fault. There were a lot of things that went wrong with that team. But to your point, Ross, what Jim Mora did in that moment is he potentially lost a lot of the locker room. And that's when I feel things really turned for that particular Seahawks team. In this particular game, I look back to the Blair Walsh years where every game, Blair Walsh missed a field goal, missed a vital field goal here and there. I think it was like 3 games that if he makes like just one kick in each of those 3 games, like we win 2 and we push one game to like OT. Kicking is the vital part of the game, and I think you kind of like summed it up really well. If your entire game falls on one play and it's on the legs of your kicker, that means you messed up a lot of other times. And maybe this is one of those things where this is that randomness that comes into football, and we're not seeing that in our favor in 2021, where that's all we saw in 2020.
I mean, it's an old cliche, but like the difference between winning and losing in football is inches. It's small inches everywhere. And it's the margin is so thin. You gotta be, you have to keep your blade sharp constantly. Things aren't going our way this year.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's still, and we'll talk about it, there were definitely positives to pull up in that game. There are a lot of things that I felt like these are building towards positives that you can stack into next week's game and towards the future. But the question is, are we risking running out of time? These are games that I think almost every Seahawk fan would say, if Russell Wilson was playing against Pittsburgh or playing against New Orleans, those would have been almost easy wins if the defense plays the same way it did. Now, maybe you say, well, because the Seahawks have been a boom or bust offense, the defense would have been on the field a lot longer and they wouldn't have been able to play as stout. I think that's a fair assumption to make. But I would still give the Seahawks a much greater chance of winning those games if Russ is the one with the ball in his hands with a chance to tie or win the game.
I think that's fair. And that's why I'm a little discouraged at some of the Twitter atmosphere out there right now. I mean, Green Bay 2 years ago and Dallas last year, when these teams lose Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott, they start, people say you make your own luck, and when you're missing that people, then there's nobody on making you luck, and you get all the bad luck. You miss Russell Wilson, and suddenly your kicker can't kick. Weird connection, but somehow it just seems like it all comes together like that. In any case, when you're missing your key guy, and this isn't even, it doesn't even apply to the argument, Ross, you said you could win other ways. Yeah, but the team is built around Russ now. $35 million of this year's salary cap is in him, and he's not on the field. So this is what you get. And, it's not just us. That's why I'm kind of mad. You can't base anything on what's happening right now. Again, remember how bad Dallas looked last year under their number 2 and number 3 quarterback? Or 2 years. I mean, these are teams that end up finishing 6-10.
And
but once they get the quarterback, they're back in the playoffs. So.
To the Dallas point, they weren't winning even when Dak was there. They lost in 4 games, I believe, before Dak even got hurt for the whole year. So I think one more surprising thing is we're almost 10 minutes into the podcast and we've barely even talked about Geno. So maybe
because we're afraid.
Maybe we don't want to. I don't know.
To me, it's not even about. I mean, it is Geno. I see a cascading issue with Geno. I feel like they're calling plays to protect him, but the protecting doesn't help anything. The coaches don't trust him, and he hasn't had enough time, I think, with some of the receivers, even though they let him play more than most backups with the starters in the preseason. Like, yeah, so coaches don't trust Geno. Geno doesn't trust the receivers, and there you go. I mean, they ran 9 plays, like running plays, against an 8-man box. Like, there was 11 plays where, where they faced an 8-man box, and in 9 of those they just ran the ball straight, like bam. Like, that's not really a recipe for success. And going in, the Saints had the number 2 rushing defense, so like, I know it's not ideal as your backup quarterback, but you just gotta sling it. And if you're Geno, you gotta throw it. If you're the offensive coordinator, fine, pick some easy passes, but pass the ball.
Yeah.
Like, don't just run Penny for 1.5 yards a time 6 times. What are we doing?
Geno looks so slow to me, and not, obviously he's a good athlete and he can run, but not in that aspect. He's slow everywhere else to me. He's slow interpreting the call. He's slow trying to see what's going on in the defense. It just seems like it takes him forever to go through the processes, and then he can't get rid of the ball fast enough. Like, he doesn't make the decisions quick enough. And I don't think that's something that's going to change. I don't think that's something that's fixable. I mean, maybe if he had a lot more time with this offense, but this is what we got, and he's just not in.
And it's really frustrating to me because the only upside in keeping Geno Smith was he was familiar with the system, right? Like, he knows the system, so you're thinking, like, even though he's the backup, when he gets in the game, he still knows what's going on. But I think I commented during the game, like, whenever they cut to his face when he's on the sidelines, he looks so confused. Yeah. Whenever they show his face after an incomplete pass, he doesn't look confident. He looks like, what was that? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And that's not great for your quarterback to be out there looking that confused. And like Zeb said, like, slow in going through the progression, slow in getting the play called, slow in getting the snap off. You know, people blame the Pete Carroll for the timeout, and he did take it, so it is ultimately his responsibility. But they have been more up-tempo this year. They get the play call in much faster now. It's Geno, apparently, not getting out of the huddle to the line, make adjustments and call, and snapping the ball on time.
The whole process just feels like it's slow, doesn't it?
It's surprising that for a guy that knew he was going to start the last 2 games, that there hasn't been a sense of pace or, like, urgency in the way that he runs the offense. I think that's pretty clear.
It's weird that the game he had to come in suddenly is the game he played the best. And so it makes me think, like, you've got to, like, it's a lot of this is in his head. Like, does he think like he's auditioning for his last chance, so he's nervous? Or has he just been told, hey, just don't screw up, and so that's really stuck in his head? I don't know what it is. But when he just came in and was just slinging it, he played fine. Now that he knows he's the starter for a few weeks, he's worse. And it feels like that's something that your proper offensive coordinators with a lot more experience maybe would know how to handle and deal with. Call him aside, give him a few words and some advice, and be able to handle. But we've got an offensive coordinator who's probably 6 months younger than Geno Smith and never played the game, and is just really good on the blackboard with X's and O's. Blackboards?
Yeah.
Use blackboards? Whiteboards?
On the Surface Pro. I think that's what it is now.
There you go.
Well, the Seahawks suffer another demoralizing loss as the Geno-led team has the ball with a chance to tie or take the go-ahead score, but fail on their last drive of the game. The defense continues to show impressive coverage skills in back-to-back games, but were marred by untimely penalties throughout the game. The offense was able to use up a lot of clock, but outside of one long touchdown to DK, it never looked in sync and often fizzled out. Penny returned to the offense, but didn't show much in his limited opportunities. The once super reliable Jason Myers, with one E, suddenly has the yips. Can the Seahawks rebound, or are they destined for a top 5 pick to give to the Jets as they face the 1-win Urban Meyers Jacksonville Jaguars? This is the Hawkscast.net podcast. I am Sam. With me, as always, is Zeb and Ross. You can find us at Twitter at Seahawks Forum, Seahawks Podcast. But we're going to jump into topic number one. And Ross, I want to know, is the defense doing enough to help the offense win these games? What about vice versa? You know, the Saints and the Steelers are not known for having a prolific offense this year. They have in the past, but the defense looked good. Is that enough to help the Seahawks stay in this game? Do we lose Ross? He's just thinking about it really hard.
And I'm back.
Okay, there he is.
Sorry about that. I got disconnected somehow.
Ross, is the defense doing enough to help the offense win these games?
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked a little bit before, and I said, like, I don't know how much to give credit to the defense and how much to credit some of the weather, but they, you know, whatever the reason is, they have been, some aspects of the defense have been improved the last couple of games. They're giving them a shot. They're giving them a chance. They're keeping it close enough where, like, the last 3 games, it came down to our possession. We had chances to win the game. So, in the modern NFL, I guess that's what you want, right? If you can get the ball back and you got a chance to win the ball and you've got 2 minutes with modern rules to move the ball down, what more do you want from your defense? You know, whether it's 20 points, 10 points, 30 points. If they've given you a chance at the end of the game, despite the track meet nature of the NFL sometimes, that's all you can ask from your defense. So yes, the defense every single week for the past 3 weeks has done their job. You know, they may have been beat up all game long, but they've made a critical stop here or there. They've gotten a turnover even once. You know, they've given the offense a fighting chance. And that's, you know, where it comes down to you need to have the quarterback whose ability, you know, that's maybe Russell's best attribute is when it's on the line, you can feel pretty confident he's going to get things done. He's not perfect, but, you know, there's very few quarterbacks you'd rather have out there with 2 minutes left in the game and you're down by 4. But I think the defense is doing their job acceptably well the last couple of weeks.
What about vice versa? Is the offense helping the defense out there? They're having better time of possessions. They're converting a little bit more third downs. They're not getting.
I mean, they're doing a few things that are shortening the game, and that's helping. I mean, you know, that is the positive side, I guess, of letting Penny run 6 times for 9 yards. Is that you get, you know, or like the 8 running plays in a row, which some people were criticizing, but like you loved that last week. But so I mean, like the offense has a few things going right for it. I mean, like, but I don't think it's it's pulling its weight. I mean, clearly 3 weeks in a row, the defense said, "Okay, here you go, guys, go win us the game. We got you the ball back," and they didn't. So I mean, like 10 points isn't going to win a game. So, no, the offense isn't holding up their end, and that's not surprising. The offense wasn't meant to be run by Geno Smith. The offensive wasn't meant to you know, it shouldn't have to be Penny back there taking 6. That could have been Chris Carson splitting time with Alex Collins. You know, we're missing some injuries. We're missing some players. And that hurts. That clearly hurts.
Yeah.
Quarterback position is not like any other position in any sport game, you know, any sport. I was talking about it today with a friend who doesn't know anything about football. The closest I could come to is like an Olympic-level women's softball team, the pitcher. Because in softball, it's always the same pitcher usually, because underhand doesn't, you know, destroy your arm. So if you've got like an ace pitcher, you can always keeping it a 1-run game. That's about the closest I could come up with as a comparison in any sport.
Shout out to Jenny Finch. Jenny Finch is a really, really good U.S. women's softball player. So she was a pitcher.
There you go. There you go. And I mean, in softball, like, that pitcher's super important because that's going to determine how many runs you give up, obviously. So that's the closest comparison I could come to. And when you don't have yours, Yeah, the offense isn't holding up their end of the bargain, but it's not necessarily their fault. Shane's fault. Oh, it's partly Shane's fault.
All right, fair enough. Zeb, what about you? Is the defense doing enough to help the offense win these games? Because, 13 and 23 points respectively is all they've given up these two games.
Well, no, they're not. Even though I agree 100% with everything Ross said, and I think the defense is playing actually pretty well these last couple of games. Unfortunately, based on what we have on offense right now, it's just not enough. We're still struggling to get turnovers, which would, then we get a turnover now and again, and we pretty much blow it and aren't able to take advantage of it. But no, we're at a point where the defense needs to win these games for us. The offense is not going to do it under Geno Smith. It's not going to happen. So, unfortunately, for the defense, they need to do even more. And I don't know if that's possible at this point because, like I said, they've played well these last couple of games. I think they're playing with the mentality that they need to win these games, that the offense isn't going to do it. But unfortunately, it's just not enough. We need some game-changing plays. We need pick sixes. We need, we need turnovers, and we need big plays from the defense. Unfortunately, but that's what we need right now.
That's excellent points.
Do you think that the offense is maybe the question is not about vice versa anymore? Is the offense close to helping out the defense? Do you have any semblance that the offense is going to get better next week against the Jags?
I have no optimism that this offense is going to get better. I think what we're seeing is what we're going to get. Like I said, I love Geno Smith. I think he's a great dude. He just doesn't seem to have it. Now, I don't know enough about what goes on beyond the scenes. The play calling's been very interesting. We talk about them calling plays to protect Geno, and I think that's unfortunately something that they have to do because he just doesn't look up to speed. And if we're asking him to go out there and sling the ball over the field, he's going to throw interceptions. So I think they've done a good job in managing that, and that helps to keep these games close. But he just doesn't have what it takes to win the game in the end.
I 97% agree with that, but
here comes the 3%. Watch out.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
They have the 84-yard pass or 84-yard touchdown to Metcalf. I didn't see the Saints make some massive major adjustment to that. I saw Lattimore still take on Metcalf over and over again one-on-one, and Geno just never. Sometimes the play call doesn't take advantage of that. It felt like we had evidence early in the game, I guess is my point, that we could attack, and they still wouldn't. Sometimes it was maybe the play call was in there, but Geno was too small, too slow to do it, too hesitant to throw it. But it just that situation that they identified on that, you got a one-on-one and the safety's not rolling. They faced the similar looks later on, and it didn't look like it was baiting. It was just they were daring you to throw that again. And I think, yeah, you got to protect Geno Smith, so you can't do too many. But I just think they needed to attack a little bit more.
There's
just knowing that. Go ahead.
So there's some combination of Geno not being able to take advantage of what he sees or not being able to recognize, and our play calling not taking advantage of our few strengths. They're just some combination of those two things, and it's just not working. They're just not doing what needs to be done. If what needs to be done is even available.
I just it's funny. You really, really wish you knew the play call sometimes, because I really, really want to know, did they try to go? I mean, Metcalf didn't have a second target until the second half, right?
Until the fourth.
Late, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't even target him again the rest of the half. I mean, but were there play calls where he was and just Geno didn't? I mean, you want to say he didn't go through his progressions, but there should have been play calls where like Metcalf is the primary, like, and the pre-snap read was like, okay, he's got a one-on-one. There was a play actually. They showed the replay of, and the announcers even saying like, Lattimore is on Metcalf pretty well, but I'm like, Metcalf's 6'3" with a billion-inch vertical. Throw it any.
Yeah.
Just throw it, because here's the thing: even if it's incomplete, the very fact that you're threatening with those deep passes will loosen things up. Because again, they didn't respect the pass from Geno. They were like, Geno, we don't think you know how to throw the ball. Here's 8 men in the box again. Here's almost 9 men in the box, and you're just going to run at it.
Yeah,
I don't like the play call. But again, sometimes I don't know if it's the play call. Maybe the play call was fine. Geno's not executing it. Geno's not going through the progression. I don't know. Like, it's so hard to evaluate in football.
If we throw an 84-yard touchdown to DK at the beginning of the game and literally call plays that don't target him again until the fourth quarter, that's a way bigger issue than just having Geno Smith be our starting quarterback.
Yeah, but and that's the frustrating thing as a fan to talk about, because again, I don't know. I don't know if like if 6 plays in a row Shane was like, throw it to that DK, but Geno was like, nah, he's not open. Nah, it's not open, because it's not open in his own mind, right? Like Maverick at the end of Top Gun where he won't engage, right? Oh no, it's no good. It's no good. Dude, they're giving you the look. It doesn't get any better than that.
Sammy, what do you think?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard because I think what Ross said is pretty clear. It's like, yeah, they're better, but my question is, it's against like 2 bad offenses. Like, I don't think the Pittsburgh offense is great. Ben can't push the ball downfield. Jameis looked really limited, and if he doesn't throw to Kamara 100 times that game, I'm not sure who he was going to throw to. Yeah, he completed some other throws, but he never looked like really comfortable other than throwing to Kamara. So, and the defense didn't figure that out until like the second half, because their only touchdown drive was Kamara. And for whatever reason, and it was everyone's, favorite son that doesn't get snaps, Ryan Neal. He's the one that couldn't stop him. He was in coverage. You were playing dime, and it was his responsibility. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe he's just the one that happens to be the closest to Kamara when Kamara catches the ball. But he didn't secure tackles. He gave up too much space. The play design was bad. So I hate to nitpick on Ryan Neal, but this is the same thing that we saw with Alton Robinson. Everyone's saying, how come Alton Robinson's not getting snaps? Well, he kind of sucks against the run, and when they keep showing run fronts and run plays, you don't want him on the field. I'm worried that that's what we saw with Ryan Neal. Ryan Neal against a tight end, against a wide receiver, he seems to do pretty good. Ryan Neal against a running back, not so great. So the defense could do more, but they have to do more because the offense is just so bad. So bad. Even if you give them those 2 field goals, like, yeah, they score 16 points and they would have technically won this game, but that doesn't mean that, the Saints don't change their offensive scheme, and instead they could have gone for a touchdown. It wasn't like it was still a 1-score game regardless. And my concern is, while I am impressed with the defense, I thought Jamal Adams had a pretty solid game. He didn't get a sack. He got a hurry. He defended the ball really well. Jordan Brooks had a great pass deflection in the end zone to stop a touchdown. So there are some highlights from the defensive side, but because the offense is so limited and it's so bad, I need more. And I'm not sure we can expect more, because middle linebackers aren't necessarily like huge playmakers, especially the way that Bobby's playing. And I thought Bobby had a great game. I thought it was probably one of his best games of the year, because maybe he wasn't so worried about everyone else not doing their job and the team's finally doing well. Trey Brown flashed. I thought Sidney Jones had a couple actually good plays. DJ Reed played well. Quandre played well. So the secondary all of a sudden started looking better. But it's not enough. And I think that's the problem. It's like, yeah, it's okay if we had a better offense to complement you. And that's what helped the Seahawks last year. But this year, they have to do more, because they're really our best chance to generate points. And they're getting close, but they're not closing out and doing it. And I think that's my concern.
I get what you're saying, but can you really look at Bobby Wagner in the eye and say we needed more from the defense that game? I mean, yeah, in theory we did because we didn't win. But Bobby's going to look at you and go, we had 2 sacks, couple pressures, turnover, but numerous 3-and-outs.
All right, let's be real. If I got to meet Bobby, I would not say any of that to his face. I'd say, I'm the biggest fan. I love you. Can I take a photo with you? I can't wait to tell all my friends that I got to meet you. I love you. I can't wait for you to go into Canton with the Seahawks. Let's be real. Now, if I'm on the internet and I'm going to, at Bobby, yeah, I might say some things I wouldn't say to him in his face.
I don't know. I don't know if I can. I mean, again, I agree with both of you that right now, if we're going to win, we probably need some more big plays from the defense. But I can't say that
it's unfair. What I'll say is it is unfair to ask the defense to more than what they've shown in these last 2 games. We need the special teams to show up better. We need the kicking game to show up better. We need, Michael Dixon to be even better than what he's already been. He's the one person this year that I think has actually just been good and positive all year long, which is it's weird that we would focus on that. But yeah, I think to your point, Ross, it is asking a lot. But what it comes down to is when you look at where you're paying your money, who are you paying money to, and what are you getting out of them? If Bobby wants to be the top 5 player that he is, he needs to show, and he needs to help the defense show. And maybe that's where he needs to help his teammates out, where he's not necessarily making the plays, but he's telling them, watch for this, and if they do that, this is what you do. And Bobby is not the same kind of leader as like a Cam Chancellor or Richard Sherman. He's definitely not an Earl Thomas. And I think that's what this team is lacking a little bit. Not that I think Bobby is a bad player. I think Bobby has been great, even this year. Yeah, he got exposed a little bit in that Titans game. But you know what? It also awakened the Titans to figure out, we're going to throw to Derrick Henry 5 times a game now. He's actually really good at this. So,
yep.
That's a whole other thing.
Bobby Wagner, we added a whole tool to Derrick Henry's toolkit.
But actually, what we need to do, we're running really late, so I'm gonna push us ahead to topic number 2. So I apologize, because this one I think is also important because this talks about us as fans. We're a podcast that, we're regular people. We don't talk about a lot of X's and O's. We talk about what we enjoy. So Ross, this question's for you. Topic number 2. Are you able to enjoy these games, or is there some relief knowing that they're not your regular Seahawks? You're watching these games at a much different time than we are. Are you able to enjoy these games?
I mean, I enjoyed last week's game. I can't say I was really, really, ecstatic and super hyped and having a good time watching the Saints game. I mean, it actually slightly reminded me of the Mora years where, not only did they lose, there was very little to entertain you during the game. They're just, there wasn't much offense going on. There wasn't much defensive, really notable plays. So, I mean, I can still enjoy it. Football's football to me. As I get older, I think I'm a little bit less obsessed with, I don't know, some of the whole... I started worrying more or thinking more about the theoreticals. How fun would it be to try something new? So it's still enjoyable to me. I can still get enjoyment out of the game. I would never not watch, but I can't say I loved that Saints game though. No. Last week I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to a good game this week versus Jacksonville. But watching, 12 passes to Kamara over and over and over again, watching Penny with his first carry since the Reagan administration.
I thought he was going to break himself on that first carry where he got flipped.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh well, I guess he's going back on IR. Okay. But I don't know. I mean, it's enjoyable. I can find things to enjoy out of it, but it's a lot funner when you're winning, isn't it?
Yeah. Zeb, what about you? I know you love football like all of us do, but are you able to enjoy these games? Is there a little bit less tension or worry because expectations aren't as high?
I mean, it's a little bit of both, right? It's not a treat to watch these games the way it is when the team's playing really well. But I watching professional football is one of my favorite pastimes. So, like, I still do enjoy watching the games, and I've loved watching the Seahawks play for, I don't even know how long it's been now, 35 years or something like that. You know, most of my life, and the fact that we are in this position where we, going in, victory is unlikely. It does kind of is a bit of a relief. It takes a little bit off the edge. It's just kind of like when something good happens, it feels, it's a little bit easier to enjoy. It's like it's like watching the Seahawks during the 90s. The wins meant so much and they felt so big because you just didn't get them very often, right? So when you're watching this Seahawks team play, when something good happens, there's something kind of special about it, in a different way than, when you're watching a team that is competing at a championship level, that you do have a chance to win a Super Bowl. It's a whole different type of enjoyability, but it's still enjoyable to me.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate that I'm still watching the entire game and not in a position where I'm like, oh, well, they're losing they're down 0-14, so I'm not going to watch the second half like that Pitt game. But yeah, I mean, I think enjoy is kind of a weird way to look at it because I'm still rooting for the team, obviously, and I still want them to do well. But my expectations for the team are so much lower. Like, we've done predictions almost every podcast, and it's pretty rare for any of us to pick against the Seahawks. But this is the first year where we're picking, against the Seahawks. Last week, I was the only one that picked the Saints. But in previous weeks, we've picked other teams, and I think that this is indicative of what we think of the team as a whole. Now, what I've noticed for myself is I'm watching a lot more football just in general. Like the Thursday night game, I'm watching a little bit more than I would normally. Watching the Sunday night game, watching the Monday night game, watching a little bit of the earlier game if it's on. So for me, I'm taking in more football than I have previously. But for the Seahawks in particular, I still enjoy them. I'm invested in such a different way because Russ isn't there that I feel like there is a sense of relief, and I'm not as bummed out when they lose. I still get frustrated with certain things, just aspects of the game or players or coaches or plays, but I feel like there's a little bit less of that highest expectations that it's Super Bowl or bust now, that it's more like, if we're competitive and I stay for the whole game, that's a positive. Yay for the Seahawks, yay for me. Let's go on to the next week. So it's very different. I've not felt this way before, and I wonder if it's just because, Russ put so much more emphasis and expectation into how the Seahawks are going to perform.
Could be.
All right. Well, we're gonna. That was a quick topic, but we are gonna move ahead because this is gonna be a banger. This is the Hawks Cast Corner. This is topic number 3. Zab, I need to know. Seahawks are 2-5. Are you ready to rebuild, reboot, or burn it all to the ground?
Look, we've talked recently about the sort of excitement of the unknown, the kind of intrigue and optimism about starting new, starting fresh, and we've been kind of the same team now for a decade or so, and there is that excitement that exists, that intrigue. What could it be like? What would it be like if we were to start over? What would we do? What kind of moves would we make? What would this team look like? Now, that concept of that being interesting and exciting kind of took a big kick to the nuts these last couple of weeks by seeing this team play with a different quarterback. And as expected, as predicted, I find myself really hoping that Russ gets back as soon as possible. It's easy to take for granted a team that's been consistently really good for the most part. And things start to get a little bit stale, and so you want to change stuff up. But as we've seen these last couple of weeks, Russell Wilson probably wins us those last 2 games in all likelihood. If history means anything, he probably has enough to make that happen. So I'm not ready. I'm not calling for a reboot or a rebuild or burning it all to the ground. I'm not fire Pete. I'm not trade Russ. Whatever happens, happens, and I'm going to be here for it. And if we do end up going in that direction, I will be excited to see what's going to happen. But as of right now, I kind of want to get back to Russell Ball. So that's where I'm at.
Fair enough. Ross, what about you? We've gone on this podcast. We've talked about it offline. We've talked about it all over the place. We've talked it on previous forums. We've talked about our new forum, hawkscast.net. Are you ready to rebuild, reboot, or burn it all to the ground?
I don't know where I'm at right now because I think it's still emotional and it's still. I'll say this: I'm really frustrated that Twitter's full of this week, even like real reporters going like, "Man, look at these last couple of games. It's time to fire Pete." Like again, like every team sucks when their backup quarterback is in. Like. It's really weird for people to like point at the last 2 games and go, well, yeah, look at man, like Pete's done. What? Like it's Geno Smith out there. This isn't what the team looks like without Russell Wilson. Because if you actually had an off season where you knew you weren't going to have Russell Wilson, that's $35 million you've got. And assuming you traded him away, you got draft picks. If you wanted to be super cutthroat, you wouldn't have done the Jamal Adams trade. You'd get rid of Bobby Wagner. Now, all of a sudden, you've got $70 million more in cap space. And how many more number 1 picks do you get back and do you get for Russell Wilson? And that's what your rebuild looks like. Not, it's just like it was like against the Saints, we're just missing Russ. No, if you're going to rebuild, you actually have stuff there that would help you rebuild. That doesn't mean I want to do it, because I think the main case that it's all of a sudden it's the big talk of the town because of the last 2 losses or because we're 2-5. But again, we're a missed field goal, or sorry, 2 missed field goals and a missed extra point away from being 4-3. And then what does the conversation look like? Completely irrational right now. They're like, I'm like, like Mina
Kimes.
She's writing like, okay, bye Pete, gotta get rid of him. It's time for a change. Like,
to be fair, and I'm not saying this because like I like Mina Kimes. I'm not like her biggest fan.
I like it.
But she says it should be on the table, which is not the same, but a lot of people are going to read it as fire Pete.
Yeah, but the article's timed because of the last 2 games. And she does bring up some legitimate points. Like, hey, this stuff is never... It's all like... It's so weird to me. It's so many people saying, hey, look, without Russell, like, look how many warts Russell's presence covered over. But literally that's how football works. If any team lost their elite quarterback, then they become much worse. Yes, obviously, duh. There's nobody, like, if you've built your team around an elite quarterback, that's a veteran, so you've also built it around, like, his salary, and then you lose him, like, that's 1/6 of our salary cap is on the sideline. So it doesn't mean anything. So I'm a little frustrated that the whole conversation this whole week is all around, like, do we fire Pete or not? At the end of the season, after you got a fair sample size, if you think like it's time to move on, I mean, I'll buy it. I'm always ready to try to prove you can win other ways. But right now, I'm like, it's an irrational conversation for irrational reasons. I mean, it's weird to me how people can say, oh, we're going to lose to the Saints. And then we do lose to the Saints. And they're like, oh, we'll fire Pete. Well, they did exactly what you thought they were going to do. I mean... And then it's those people who want to fire Pete who wanted to bring in Shane as well. I feel like right now, especially with this kind of emergency type situation, I think Darrell Bevel actually would handle this offense better right now. I know nobody likes that.
I actually agree with you. I think I would have preferred Shoddy or Bevel at this current juncture.
Yeah, I think Bevel, both of them would handle this situation better.
Is Bevel George W. Bush now?
He gets like recast and rebuild his image.
He's just.
But I mean,
painting
I said that at the
portraits.
time. This isn't complete. I mean, it's a, yeah. I mean, it's a bit of hindsight, but I also said at the time. I mean, like, I don't, when people were on his case constantly because of his play calling, okay, that was sometimes not his best thing, but that's not all offensive coordinator did. That dude got us to the Super Bowl with our offense, with a receiving core that was all undrafted people, with like a tight end that wasn't on our team at the beginning of the season, with with garbage. The offense was a third-round quarterback, Marshawn Lynch, who we did trade for, and a bunch of like UDFAs or cast-offs or dudes who used to play defense playing on the offensive line. Like, who else can build an offense out of nothing better than Bevel? I mean, like, come on. So right now, like, all of a sudden you go to this emergency. Also, Bevel was also the one who was able to implement with, not in training camp, not midway through the season, like at the beginning of the part of the season when it was clear Russell was going to be our quarterback his rookie season, but it wasn't quite smooth yet. So mid-season, all of a sudden, on the fly, implements like we're going to do like read option plays, which wasn't what they had ever done before, and Russell didn't even have experience with it. Implemented on the fly, changed, revolutionized our offense. We were the only team that made it actually work consistently for years, right? Yeah, I mean, like Bevel. Yeah, maybe we're going over. Maybe I'm going overboard with the rehabilitating of his image, but I feel like right now he would have been a better for our situation right now, today, this week. Those people who wanted Shane, well, here you go. You got what you wanted. There you go. Great. But as soon as somebody gets injured, yeah. Anyway, that's my rant.
I think, like anything, when you've been with one coach and you've seen like the team for this many number of years, it can get boring. Last year we had a discussion of whether or not it was a successful year that the Seahawks went 12-4 but lost in the first round of the playoffs. Like, we all had very different opinions about if that was successful or not. We've missed the playoffs only 2 times in Pete's entire tenure. Once with Tavares Jackson at the helm, and once with Russell at the helm. And that was still a 10-win team. That team was obviously, a couple kicks away from being in the playoffs and a bunch of other scenarios. So for me, it's hard to look at this team and say, like, well, yeah, this is the time to blow it up. Now, I'm a realist, and I understand that, yeah, if Jody Allen or if Pete and John or Russ, if any of them say, you know what, we can't mend this anymore, we have to make a change. If any one of those 3 parties, those groups, decide that it's time for a change, I could see that what way we're going to go, and depending on who stays and who leaves, it's going to lead towards one of those 3 options of a rebuild, a reboot, or burning it all to the ground. They're all pretty terrible options to me, because if you get rid of Pete, John, and Russ as that core trio, as the management, because I consider quarterbacks part of management, it's going to be bad, because the replacement, the person that comes next, there's no guarantee that it's going to get better. We've seen coaches get their quarterbacks that they hope for, and they've lost their job because they bet on the wrong quarterback. Or we've seen quarterbacks with a bad coach and a bad everything, and it just goes, like Mike McCarthy. Mark McCarthy, he was, the Green Bay Packer darling. He was like a Mike Holmgren. He won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. And then Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. The Packers, and I had to look this up because I can't remember when it happened, but in 2017, they went 7-9. Aaron Rodgers got hurt. He only played in 7 games, and he went 4-3 in those 7 games. And the next year, in 2018, Aaron Rodgers played an entire year. They went 6-9-1. And then Mike McCarthy got fired. So, yeah, if you go 6-9-1 with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, yeah, it's probably time for a change. We haven't seen an injured Russ in a decade. This is the first time. I'm not ready to throw everything out. This is a challenging year, and if Russ, Pete, and John want to come back for another year, I think that would be the best. If you tell me what has to happen, and I don't know the future, I would lean towards rebuilding because there's so many parts that I think are good enough to keep. But a lot of that will also play into the fact that, the people that we have as unrestricted free agent for 2022, there are a lot of key players. And they have money to retain them, but I don't know if every single one of those players will want to come back. So...
if we did have to rebuild now, also, we're not an attractive thing. Like
if you get Russell Wilson, I think that's attractive. If you don't get Russell Wilson, I agree that it's not an attractive position. But there are only 32 positions.
No number one pack. I mean,
there are only 32 head coaching positions in the NFL. So, I mean, unattractive is, I think, relative. But I understand your point that, there's not necessarily a whole lot to work with. The cupboard's going to be bare in one fashion or the other.
Yeah.
I do want to say this. Matty F. Brown, a friend of the podcast, we're claiming him because it came on the podcast in like year 1 or 2.
Yeah.
He said, and I thought this was really great, on Twitter, and I posted on Hawkscast. He said, there are a lot of people that have been waiting for this moment, and this is like their chance. So the number of comments where like, oh yeah, it's time to fire Pete. I think only because we have Pete were we even in these past 2 games. Yeah, the Titans game was very demoralizing loss. The Minnesota game was a bad loss for the Seahawks. But the loss against this Saints and Pittsburgh's teams, those are not necessarily bad losses because they're just a few adjustments away from being able to win those games. I think that they can do it. I'm not saying they will, but it's possible with Pete, with the offensive coordinator who can, figure out how to work with a quarterback. I think they're not far off. So, final thoughts on burning it all to the ground, rebuild, reboot.
It's only a matter of time, right?
It is, but like people keep bringing up Pete's age. The locker room seems to still love Pete, and I feel like Pete, with his attitude, he won't stop unless he's forced to, and I don't see that happening soon.
Yeah, and I don't think, based on ownership at this point, he's not going anywhere until he's ready to go somewhere. So,
yep. All right, let's go on to the final topic for the evening, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have the new hotness in a lot of ways. They have the number 1 draft pick in Trevor Lawrence. They have one of the greatest college coaches running their team. They're 1-5, coming to Seattle on Halloween. What separates the Seahawks from becoming the Jaguars franchise, Ross? I mean, it seems like we're on the cusp of that based upon the way that people are treating this team right now. Oh, maybe Zeb, I'll shoot that to you. Ross might be in the middle of something, so
I'll be right back. Go ahead and have Zeb talk first.
All right, Zeb.
I'll talk first. Unfortunately, it's something that I just mentioned, and it used to be the ownership. We knew that as long as Paul Allen, somebody who was very invested in fielding a competitive team and going after championships, we knew we were pretty safe. But unfortunately, he's gone, and I don't know that we know what level of interest Jody has in not only keeping this team, but keeping this team competitive and keeping this team quality. So I don't want to speak anything ill into existence, but we just don't know at this point. And unfortunately, that to me, that's a sign that we are in danger of slipping into that type of position where we turn into a team like, not necessarily just the Jaguars, but the Lions. There's quite a few of these teams out there that treat a playoff berth as a victory, that's a successful season, and that's the best. That's pretty much the best they can hope for. That's scary. I don't like to think about that. We had it so well under Paul. It was so comfortable. There was never anything. We always knew that he was going to get the best people that he could find and put them in a position to succeed. So, the future is uncertain. But I do know, like I said previously, that as long as Pete wants to be here, he's going to be here, and I think as long as he's here, we will be competing. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? We're not gonna turn into a permanent bottom of the division dweller as long as Pete's at the helm.
Yeah, I was really thinking about like the biggest scandal that the Seahawks have had in its history, you know? Like, we've had players get in trouble. We've had, like, the Jeremy Stevens and the Corn Robinsons of the world, or, you know, we've had, you know, a few issues with some players, like getting in trouble with the law, you know, even players that weren't currently with the team, you know, just carrying that name. But we've never had, like, a huge scandal, you know? Like, this isn't like Pete going to California after a Niners game and then hanging out at his club and getting in trouble because, you know, some co-ed is grinding on his leg that's not his wife. We haven't had that. And there's a level of stability that I feel like we have that really separates the Seahawks from a lot of other franchises. You know, the franchises that you want to be there to model yourself after. So the difference that I see between what would stop the Seahawks from being the Jaguars is a level of consistency that the ownership wants, and what they do is they give grace, they give time. You know, the only reason that Jim Mora got 1 year is because it was a bad fit. He lost the locker room. The GM that hired him got canned that same year. There were so many things that were working against him. And I know a lot of people were up in the air about Pete, but, you know, based upon his record at USC, I was looking forward to it. You know, it was a little rough that first year going 7-9, but, you know, ended in the Beastquake. So right. I think to your point, Zeb, like, yeah, there is a lot of things that separate the Seahawks, but it is a very small margin. And there is a chance that, you know, with the wrong decision for whoever controls this team, it could really mess things up. Ross, are you back with us? Are you able to talk about...
Talking. Yeah, I'm a little bit more optimistic than you guys. I don't think we're in danger because I think what separates us most is that the Jacksonville Jaguars have an owner who thinks he knows more than he knows about sports and how sports works and like football even itself, even, you know. And Jody knows her limitations. You know what I mean? So Jody knowing her, you know, and she's not dumb. She knows what she doesn't know. She's really, really passive right now because she can be. But if big franchise changes comes, it's always a little bit of a crapshoot. You can, you know, hire the wrong person. I mean, I own my own company. I have hired the wrong person before. I've been fooled in an interview. I've looked at a resume, interviewed a person, thought they were brilliant, and it didn't work out. I mean, that's always a danger. That doesn't mean you're incompetent as a hirer. You know, it's hard to choose. You know, people are complicated people. People are complicated things. But I just think that Jody knows that she's not a football person. She hasn't tried to be a football person. So if it did come to a situation where the team went to her and said, where, you know, the situation basically confronted herself that she's going to have to make some bigger decisions, I don't think she's just going to sit around and roll a dice or get out her dartboard and pick a name. She'll talk to some people who, you know, I think even the NFL would even help her. Like, here's some people who know football. Talk to them and get your search committees going. And I think, again, she'd approach it competently. I don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars of the world, I don't think a lot of teams work that way. I think that they have owners who are either completely absentee and just don't care as long as they're just making profits, or there are owners who are sort of playing fantasy football and think they know more than they know. I don't think we're in danger of that. I really don't. Maybe I'm being a little bit Pollyanna-ish, I just don't see it happening in Seattle. I think Jody, I mean, I don't know a lot about her, to be honest, but even like her hands-off approach to me is a positive, right? She didn't like get a hold of the team and immediately go like, my brother was dumb for doing this, that, and the other thing. She was like, yeah, he had a good thing going. His systems that were working, so I'm going to leave that mostly in place. If I have to make some decisions later on, I will, I think. But for now, I think she's just leaving well enough alone. And so people like are reading into that more than they need to. Yeah, she's not super active because she doesn't need to be. But when it comes time to it, I think, again, like from what I can tell, even from the family and everything, the reasonable people will make reasonable choices. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have the best coach next. Like I said, you can mess up. You can hire a wrong person. It doesn't mean you're dumb, you know.
It happens.
Al Davis was really, really, a great owner for Oakland and wherever else they were. And he hired some great coaches, but he also hired a couple stinkers. It happens, so.
Yeah.
And sometimes the same coach can be really good or a stinker, you know. Tom Flores really worked out well for the Raiders and not so well in Seattle. Pete Carroll's worked out great for Seattle, but didn't work out so great for, where he was previously. So, it's a complicated game, isn't it?
It is.
It is, and it's interesting because I feel like the voices, the number of people that are talking about this more so, and it's not just like the people that have been in the Fire Pete camp for years and years already. There are people that have been Fire Pete since the Super Bowl loss. I feel like that has gotten bigger and bigger, and as we become more and more removed from that Super Bowl year, those Fire Pete voices, they gain steam and they get louder and louder, and I understand their frustration. I feel that they're either being too emotional, too unrealistic, or potentially they're not being forgiving enough. And I feel like that's hard to ask a fan to forgive your team when they fail. But I feel like what Pete has done is almost irreplaceable. He is one of the top 5 most tenured coaches in the NFL, and he's one of the shortest tenured. Like Andy Reid is the second, is the next tenured coach after him, and he joined the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years after Pete did. He was with the Eagles for even longer. So you look at Pete's track record, and I know there are certain people that hate to use history as an indicator of what he's done, but there is not a huge record of failure under Pete. Even if you consider last year a failure, 12-4 and another division title and a home playoff opportunity. That's what Pete talks about wanting all the time, and in most years, that would be a welcome thing. I can't imagine any other time of the year where we would say, you know what? If you can guarantee me that the Seahawks are going to win the NFC West and they're going to get a home game, I don't know anyone that'd say that's not enough. I want more. I don't know if that's what any Jacksonville Jaguars fan can even comprehend. They had Ryan Tannehill, who is actually a very good quarterback. Oh no, he was with Miami. Who was it was Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles was the Jaguars quarterback.
Blake Bortles.
Never mind. He was good for like one fantasy year and then not much else.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can I talk a little matchup here real quick?
Yeah.
A little history. Seahawks are 5-3 all time against the Jaguars, including 2 of the last 3 and 4 of the last 6.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty lopsided. We've scored 40+ points on them 3 times. They've barely broke 30. It's interesting. We brought up Jim Mora multiple times on this podcast. In 2009, under Mora, the Seahawks beat the Jaguars 41-0, the most lopsided game in the whole series. So maybe that's a good omen.
Whoa! Shout out to Jim Mora.
Yeah,
I have no memory of that whatsoever.
Really?
What? Yeah. When did that game even happen?
I believe it was a game. Matt Hasselbeck had been injured, and he'd been out for a few games, and he came back that game and just balled. And it was it felt like the Seahawks are back. One other quick note: in 2000, there's a great game between the Seahawks and Jaguars. The Seahawks won 28-21. It was under John Kitna with rookie Darrell Jackson and rookie Sean Alexander in the game. It's actually there's a really good video on YouTube about this game. Search for it, you'll find it. It's the 2000 Seahawks at Jacksonville. It's a great game.
Maybe you could put a link to it on the website.
You know what? I'll do just that.
Sounds like a plan. Final thoughts about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, we'll talk about a little bit more in our predictions, but final thoughts about the franchise.
All right. Man, what can you say about Jacksonville? It's they seem like a nice bunch of people, you know, but they don't seem like they're not very good at football.
Is it weird that I have like no idea where any of these cities in Florida are except for Miami? I know Miami's like at the tip of the dong of Florida, but I have no clue where Tampa is. I have no clue where any city in Florida is except for Miami. Not even like Orlando.
I don't think almost anybody does. The only reason I do is, I mean, if we get a little personal, my job before I came to Japan, I had a full-time job for a few months to save a little bit of money before I moved here. And I was dealing with flood insurance. And Florida is almost all like below sea level. So it's like all a flood zone. So I was constantly like working on plat maps from and maps of Florida. So I know Florida probably better than any state in the union just because of that job. So I know where everything is, but I don't know anybody else who could. I should go on some sort of like Florida specialized Jeopardy and win.
Nice. All
right. But it's, yeah. There's no reason to know anything. As long as you know where Miami is and Disney World is, you don't need to know anything else, do you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I could if you said, all right, find Orlando on a map of Florida, I'd be like, I don't know where it is. I can find Miami, and I'd probably pick the wrong side of the dong if really given a choice. All right, let's move on to some predictions. For the sake of ease, Zeb will let you go first on these ones. Last week, Zeb and Ross predicted Seahawks wins, so unfortunately they're out. I picked the Saints to win, 20-14, so not close, but the only one that predicted the Saints to win. And unfortunately, yeah, so I'm not particularly happy about that either still. But Zeb, what is going to be the final score of the Jaguars versus the Seahawks today, or on Sunday?
Seahawks 19, Jaguars 15.
Low scoring affair. All field goals by the Jaguars, or it's
maybe.
Yeah. 19's a weird score. That's like 4 field goals and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, it's some weird shit too.
Or a bunch of like it's 3 touchdowns and 2 missed point afters.
Could be a scoregami. I don't know.
Or you know what they do? They like chase points and they like miss the first field goal and like no, we gotta go for 2 to get to that 21.
Exactly.
Ross, do you have a final score prediction for the Jaguars Seahawks? No, looks like we lost Ross. Maybe he'll come back to it. I almost want to say this game ends in a tie. I really am not impressed with the Seahawks or Geno or Trevor Lawrence. Their defense looks actually worse than anything else. So I'm not super confident, but I'm going to go Seahawks 14, Jags 10.
That's fair.
Yeah. Ross can catch up to us. Who's going to have more yards? Running, passing, total yards. Geno or Trevor?
You know what? I'm going to go Geno. I think that this defense needs to feast against Trevor. I think it's very important. I think we're going to get this win because the defense is going to make him look like the rookie he is.
I'm worried that this is a game that, even though I predict the Seahawks to win, that Trevor could get a lot of yards if he just takes whatever the Seahawks are giving him. I think their offense is smart enough to find easy plays for him. I'm going to say Trevor gets more yards, but they don't end in wins.
Fair.
Zeb, who's going to get more touches, Penny or Carson? Carson's potentially healthy. He could practice. He could come back this week.
Has he been practicing or is he still out?
You know what? That's a great question. Maybe we need to add DJ Dallas and Alex Collins to this. Which running back, just in general, which running back do you think is going to get more touches in this game?
God, the healthiest one. So probably Penny or Collins.
Oof, yeah, I mean, I feel like we need to put healthy in quotes.
Yeah.
If we change it to whoever gets the most touches from the running back core, I guess Collins. Collins is probably the most reliable. I feel like that guy hits the B button too much and tries to spin out of everything like way too many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did lose Ross, so we'll just kind of move on ahead.
We don't need him.
Yeah, these are predictions. We don't keep track of this anyway. Over under 5.5 targets for DK.
For the love of God, it better be over.
I mean, I wish I wanted to like make it a really absurd like number, but I thought 5.5 was actually realistic. So he only had 6, man. I think it was 6, but it was
Crazy.
only 3 of them were like when the game was like meaningful. So I mean, I look at other teams and they're throwing their number one wide receivers like 10, 15 times a game, and we can barely get 3 to DK in the first 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, maybe I need to talk to Marty, but like I need to know if that's on Geno or if that's a way deeper issue.
Yeah. Ross, are you back?
I am back. I don't
Right.
know what the hell happened.
All right. Run off some predictions for us. Final score: Jaguars at Seahawks.
We're gonna hit rock bottom. We're gonna lose 21-17.
Ooh, that's
Lord of mercy.
time to burn it to the ground. I feel.
That's so bad. You're gonna hear people like wanting Pete's throw. You're gonna be like, even though it's a backup quarterback, nah.
Yeah.
And yeah,
All right.
it's gonna be an atrocious week.
Who's gonna have more yards, Trevor Lawrence or Geno? On the ground, passing, any way they can collect yards, punt returns, even.
Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. Which running back is going to get the most touches for the Seahawks?
Chris Collins.
Chris Collins. And over under 5.5 targets for one DK Metcalf.
I feel like they're gonna overcompensate. So over.
Okay, and that's
Hope
fair.
they do.
Like, is this gonna be like the game plan's gonna be like the first play of the game on offense is gonna be like a bubble screen to DK. And it's
Against
just gonna go
against Shaquille Griffin.
Oh my god, that'd be awesome. he just like stiff arms him into the ground and
I mean,
goes for
To be
5.
fair, Shaquille is still fast. He's not DK fast, but he's fast. So
faster than Richard Sherman.
that is true. I want to say, and the only reason why I looked this up is because in a Panthers game, Christian McCaffrey broke one, and Christian McCaffrey has 4.43 speed. Shaquille has 4.38 speed, and that 0.05 speed is the difference from stopping a touchdown from being scored. I am going to say under. I'm going to say under on targets for DK. I just don't trust this offense to do it. And the final prediction for the night: over under 30.5 dropbacks for Geno Smith. Zeb, what do you think?
Under.
Under.
Down under.
Okay. Ross?
Over.
Over? I mean, I want to say push, but I don't think we can. So, I don't like the idea of Geno dropping back that many times. You know, it doesn't mean he's going to pass every single one. You know, it could be a sack. It could be, you know, a rush attempt. Maybe a little RPO action.
He was sacked almost 20% of the time.
Yeah.
Last game, he was sacked almost 20% of the time he dropped back.
I think he dropped back He dropped back about 30 times in the game, and that included.
I think
and he included runs.
I forgot about his.
Yeah, but he dropped back around 30. It's still a really high number of times for him to get taken down.
Yeah, even if it's 1 and 6, that's still 17% of the time.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, just putting the number 1 and 6, like that's so not good. But those are our predictions and those are our topics, and gentlemen, that's our show for tonight. You know, the game's on Halloween, so have fun to anyone trick or treating in a pandemic that we're still suffering through 2 months later, but, it is what it is. Gentlemen, would you like to have some shout-outs?
Shout out to
Fred Smoot.
Fred Smoot.
Is that like a cornerback for the Buffalo Bills like 20 years ago?
Is the cornerback that was taken after Ken Lucas.
Oh, okay. Wait, maybe he played for Buffalo and for Washington? Yes.
I remember he played for Washington. I don't remember him playing for the Bills. But we're talking about almost 20 years ago. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah,
that's a good shout out.
I don't know why, but
shout out to rational people everywhere who make rational decisions for rational reasons.
Shout out to the rationals.
Yeah.
Sea rations. Yeah.
Shout out to Zeb and Ross. Check them out at Veta the Moor or Zebulon Dak. You can find me, SammyC521, on Twitter as well. Go to the website, hawkscast.net. Shout out to Jenny Finch. She's a very attractive softball player. She deserves all her accolades. We're the Hawkscast.net podcast, and we wish you all a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.